For a long time, the picture we had of certain fast, feathery dinosaurs was very much a Northern Hemisphere story. You'd sort of imagine them zipping through ancient forests in like North America and Asia. But then a discovery down in Argentina happened that really flipped that whole narrative on its head.
It truly is remarkable, isn't it, how just a few fossil fragments can force us to, well, rewrite entire chapters in our understanding of prehistoric life. Today, we're taking a deep dive into Neuquenraptor argentinus. It's a dinosaur whose very existence challenges what we once thought we knew about, where dromaeosaurids, that group of swift, intelligent predators, actually lived. Our main source for this exploration is basically the Wikipedia page on Neuquenraptor. It does a good job bringing together the key findings and, importantly, the ongoing discussions around this discovery.
Okay.
So our mission today is pretty clear. Let's try and understand what Neuquenraptor really reveals about dinosaur evolution and maybe those fascinating connections between continents way back in the Late Cretaceous.
Right. Okay, so let's unpack the moment this all started. We're talking January 1996, correct, near Plaza Huincul in Argentina. And it sounds like this wasn't some quiet, dusty find either. The news got out pretty quickly that same year.
Exactly. The initial discovery near Plaza Huincul in the Sierra del Portezuelo was a pivotal event. And what's quite interesting is the name they first thought of. For a short period, it was going to be called Araucaniraptor argentinus. Even that early name shows they were already thinking about its regional identity.
Araucaniraptor. Does sound quite evocative, doesn't it? But, well, it wasn't meant to be. Then, in '99, I see it was tentatively grouped with the Troodontidae. Now, those are another family of bird-like dinosaurs, but distinct from the raptors we're focusing on, right?
Correct. Yeah, that provisional classification with the Troodontids really highlights the initial challenges, when you're working with fragmented fossil remains. But the official naming came later, in 2005. That was thanks to the work of Fernando Novas and Diego Pol. They officially named it Neuquenraptor argentinus.
Neuquenraptor. Okay, so that translates to Nuken thief, which makes perfect sense given where it was unearthed. And Argentinus, well, that's a pretty straightforward nod to Argentina. They certainly weren't subtle about its origins.
Precisely. The names themselves really tell part of the story. And the specific set of bones, the ones that serve as the foundation for the entire genus that's cataloged as MCF PVPH77, this holotype specimen. Well, it's not a complete skeleton, but it includes a left foot, some bits of neck vertebrae, ribs, a few tailbones, chevrons, and a radius, one of the forearm bones.
Wow. So trying to reconstruct a whole dinosaur from just that collection, it's like trying to piece together a movie plot from a handful of deleted scenes almost. But those fragments must have held some pretty significant clues. They found it in the Portezuelo Formation, which dates back to the coniation stage of the Late Cretaceous.
For those of us who aren't experts in geological time, what kind of era are we talking about there?
Correct.
The coniation stage, yeah, that places Neuquenraptor roughly, let's say, 89 to 86 million years ago.
Okay.
So this positions it firmly within the Late Cretaceous, a period just teeming with diverse dinosaur species, and not too long before the big cataclysmic event that marked the end of their reign.
Okay, so picture this creature then. Based on these fossil snippets, what kind of size are we imagining? Not some towering behemoth, I guess, given the limited remains?
No, definitely not. Current estimates suggest Neuquenraptor reached a length of about 1.8 to maybe 3.5 meters.
Okay.
So that's roughly 6 to 11.5 feet.
Uh-huh.
In terms of weight, we're looking at maybe around 75 kilograms or 165 pounds.
Right.
So medium-sized theropod, likely quite agile. The information we have suggests it was larger than Butaraptor, another fascinating South American dinosaur.
Ah, okay.
And they apparently shared some similar bone structures, so that comparison helps paint a clearer picture,
Right, yeah. So not in the T-Rex weight class, more like those quick bird-like hunters we often see depicted. Now let's dive into the nitty-gritty. It's scientific classification. That long string of Latin names can feel a bit daunting sometimes. Where exactly does Neuquenraptor fit into the vast dinosaur family tree?
Okay, yeah, let's break it down. It belongs to the domain Eukaryota, kingdom Animalia, phylum Chordata. Those are the really broad categories for, well, all animals with a backbone.
Gotcha.
Then we narrow it down to clade Dinosauria, and within that, clade Saurischia. That clade encompasses the theropods, the largely meat-eating dinosaurs that eventually gave rise to birds. From there, it's classified within the family Dromaeosaurid.
Ah, the Dromaeosaurids, the Raptors, the stars of so many dinosaur films. So Neuquenraptor is definitely part of that well-known group. And even within that, there's a further subdivision, a subfamily.
Exactly. It's placed in the subfamily Unelaginae. And then finally, we arrive at the genus Neuquenraptor and the specific species N. argentinus. You often see that little dagger symbol next to these scientific names, which just tells us that these are extinct groups. Simple as that.
Got it. So officially a Southern Hemisphere raptor.
Mm.
But reading through our source, I noticed mention of a debate, a possibility that this might be a case of mistaken identity, perhaps. Something about being a junior subjective synonym of unenlarged. That sounds like something you'd hear in a dinosaur courtroom.
Ah, it can sound quite technical. Essentially what it means is that there's a chance, a possibility, that Neuquenraptor and unenlarged, it's another South American dromaeosaurid that was named a bit earlier, back in 1997, might actually represent the same genus, or maybe even the same species.
Oh, interesting.
And because unenlarged got its name published first, it would have priority. Think of it like two chefs independently creating the same amazing new dish, right?
Yeah.
But the one who puts it on the menu first gets the bragging rights for the name. It's kind of like that.
So all this careful naming could potentially be revised if more evidence emerges linking the two.
Wow. That really highlights how paleontology is such a constantly evolving field, isn't it? New information always potentially reshaping our understanding. And initially, Neuquenraptor's place within the Dromaeosaurid was described as a polytenomy. What exactly does that imply?
Right, a polytenomy. Imagine trying to sort out who's related to whom in a big family tree based on just a few old blurry photos.
Okay.
Sometimes the clues just aren't clear enough to draw a straight line connecting everyone perfectly. A polytomy in evolutionary terms is similar. It means that the precise relationships between Neuquenraptor and other dromaeosaurid groups weren't fully clear based on the initial evidence. It was placed in a sort of evolutionary branching point where we knew it was related, but the exact order of its divergence wasn't yet resolved. Later research has often combined the data from Neuquenraptor with that of unenlarged to try and, well, clarify those evolutionary connections. Okay. So this Argentinian thief caused quite a stir, not just in what to call it, but in how we understand where these raptor-like dinosaurs actually lived. And that leads us to what I find particularly fascinating. Its paleobiogeographical significance. That's a fancy way of asking, what does the fact that it was found in South America tell us about the ancient world?
Right. Precisely that. Neuquenraptor's discovery was a real landmark because before this, virtually all known dromaeosaurids had been unearthed in the Northern Hemisphere, across North America, Europe, parts of Asia. The dominant idea was that they were pretty much exclusive to Laurasia, the northern supercontinent.
Huh. So at that time, South America was kind of like a separate dinosaur ecosystem in people's minds.
Not completely isolated, no, but it was a major part of Gondwana, the southern supercontinent. And the fact that Neuquenraptor, which is clearly dromaeosaurid, showed up there, well, that was the first solid indication that this group had a much broader distribution than we previously thought. It immediately sparked questions about how connected the northern and southern hemispheres actually were during the Late Cretaceous.
Right, because the continents weren't always in their current positions, were they? Pangaea, the supercontinent we all learned about, started breaking apart way back in the Jurassic period.
Exactly. The breakup kicked off in the early Jurassic, and by around 160 million years ago, Laurasia in the north and Gondwana in the south were distinct and separate land masses. Then Gondwana itself began to fragment. West Gondwana, which included Africa and South America, started to pull away from East Gondwana, that was Antarctica, Australia, India, and Madagascar.
Okay.
And the separation between Africa and South America specifically happened during the Cretaceous period, somewhere between, say, 132 and 90 million years ago.
So by the time Neuquenraptor was roaming around, South America was essentially its own continental island, drifting further away from Africa. How then did a dinosaur group that we thought was purely Northern Hemisphere end up all the way down south? That seems like the big question.
That is the key question, yes. And Neuquenraptor's existence is a crucial piece of that puzzle. One possibility that our source hints at is that there might have been temporary land connections, sort of like episodic land bridges linking North and South America later on in the Late Cretaceous and maybe early Paleocene epochs.
Really?
Yeah, roughly between 80 and 60 million years ago. This potential connection was likely due to shifting tectonic plates, specifically the eastward movement of the Caribbean plate.
Wow, a prehistoric dinosaur commute via a land bridge. That's a fantastic mental image. So Neuquenraptor wasn't just another interesting fossil find. It really compelled paleontologists to reconsider their theories about how dinosaurs spread across the globe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It directly challenged that long-standing assumption that dromaeosaurids were confined to the Northern Hemisphere. And it opened up exciting new avenues of research into how dinosaurs managed to disperse between continents despite the ongoing fragmentation of Pangaea. It's fascinating stuff.
Okay, so to kind of wrap this up then, the discovery of Neuquenraptor in Argentina was a really significant moment,
Yeah.
a game changer almost.
Hmm.
It showed us that these raptor dinosaurs had a much wider geographical range than we initially believed, suggesting connections between continents that, well, we're still actively investigating.
Mhm.
And the ongoing discussion about its relationship to Unearthed just underscores how dynamic and, self-correcting the field of paleontology continues to be.
Precisely. The story of Neuquenraptor beautifully illustrates how new fossil finds can overturn established scientific understanding. And that leads to a richer, more nuanced view of life in the ancient world.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How the very ground beneath our feet, constantly shifting and changing over these vast stretches of time, not only shaped the physical characteristics of these incredible creatures, but also dictated where they could roam. What other surprising links might future discoveries, still buried out there, reveal about the deep history of our planet and the life that inhabited it?
That's the enduring allure of paleontology, isn't it? That constant potential for new revelations that continue to reshape our understanding of the distant past. There's always more to find.